We're talking competition shooting today, and this is Can We Chat?
This podcast has been made possible by our sponsor, Carlson Mechanical, where your imagination comes to reality.
What's up? My name is Paul G., a Chief Safety Officer for the IDPA, helping you elevate your shooting skills safely and accurately. This channel will help you clarify IDPA rules, shooting techniques, and keep you updated on the newest gear and what's going on in the shooting community. If you are new here, consider subscribing. We have a special surprise for you today. This is the amazing Derek Zavada, one of my mentors from way back when as a safety officer. How's things going?
Things are going pretty good, actually.
Well, thank you for coming all the way out here.
Well, thanks for, luckily you actually live very close to me, turns out. In LA, that's amazing. That's only a 20-minute drive. That's pretty amazing.
That means we can carpool together.
Absolutely. I was going to say that we should start carpooling when you come out to our club range, because I know it's a little further than where we normally shoot out at Prado.
Is that the only thing that you're shooting these days, or what are you?
Right now, and I'm mainly actually just helping them right now. As you know, I'm taking a little bit of a break just because after 30 years, I just decided to take a little time off, which is funny because I still go and set up matches and run them and score them, just because you get involved with the people. I think, and what's one of the things that in the shooting sports, I don't think people realize until you get kind of involved in it.
Yes.
And I was lucky, and I consider it to be very lucky. I started, over 30 years ago in the late 80s, shooting like Steel Challenge and stuff like that. And what was funny was I got a video. I used to shoot rifle. Was where I actually started competing on rifle. So I used to shoot what was called the DCM program.
Okay.
So now it's the CMP program.
So is that long distance or?
Yeah, so it's the civilian marksmanship program that the government actually developed. And they basically developed it so they would give you, like our club would get like M1 grants.
Oh.
Wow. And they would teach you how to shoot an M1 grant because they were afraid of the impending invasion from Japan.
Okay.
So they're teaching clubs to do this. So the program went on until the mid-90s or so, and then afterwards, then it transferred over to the CMP program, which if you shoot it and you shoot a match, then you're qualified to buy a rifle from the government. When I bought my rifle, it was like $300.
Fascinating.
Yeah, they're about $1,000 now.
So so that's in the 90s. When did you actually start shooting IDPA?
Well, I started shooting IDPA right after it started. So when I started in the 80s with rifle, one of the guys in our club also ran just an action, but they used to call it action pistol at the time.
Right.
Yeah. They used to call it action pistol. And so he had a VHS tape. I know a lot of people watching this don't know what that is, but it was a form of a big cassette we used to have to watch stuff on. And it was with Rob Latham shooting USA and Steel. Yes. And what I can tell you about that, I couldn't tell you much about that video today, but what I could tell you was I remember watching a close-up of his trigger finger on the gun and shooting doubles, and the gun wouldn't move. It just go pop, 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 pop.
Yeah.
And I was fascinated that somebody could control a pistol that fast.
I think that would be, all of us would be fascinated.
Yes.
That's what we all strive for.
And then the other thing I remember, so I was like, I want to go try this action pistol. So I had to borrow a gun from a friend because I didn't have any pistols. I had rifles at the time because I was 19 or something.
Yeah.
And but at the end of the video as well, Rob's like, hey, if practice, you come to a match, we might shoot together in a squad. And I'm like, okay, well, that's Michael Jordan. I play basketball. I'm not really going to run into Michael Jordan. Now, in the shooting sports, it turns out you will run into Michael Jordan.
Like JJ Ricaz's out there.
And, all of those guys. And what you will discover is they're all amazing people.
Nils?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Well, so I shot Area 2, and Nils was this big. And we had to put down an apple box. True story. We had to put down an apple box so he could stand on it to shoot over the barricade. Now, if you see Nils today,
right?
No, you have to dig a hole to try and make him.
These kids grow up.
Oh yeah, and he grew up with Rob Latham and Todd Jarrett, and so he thought like, that's the standard I have to get to. And you're like, no, that's fantasy land. And it turns out that he, now today when you watch him shoot, he's just amazing. But he's just a very humble, quiet person, which is super fascinating.
Well, when I first started, I tried to mimic you. right? You guys shot. I was. They put me on the super squad. It was squad 1, right? And I was there, and you were there, and you shot, and I went, wow, I want to be just as fast as that guy. So I just shot as fast as you. And Fred, who the SO at the time, he sat there. He goes, dude, you need to slow down. And I go, but he shot fast, right? He said, well, yeah, but he's hitting all the zeros, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you're supposed to hit zero.
Yeah. I equated to, I read a book many years ago, and they were talking about like professional baseball players, right?
Yeah.
So they throw the ball 100 miles an hour on average,
Right.
whatever. And a lot of the batters were saying, yes, I can actually read the words on the ball. And you're like, well, that's a bit of that's not really true. And you actually learn, yeah, you actually can shoot to the point to where you are seeing the sights.
Yes.
Even though the gun's going very fast,
Yes.
to you it's slow motion. It's a very bizarre thing to get to, and people
Right.
never believe you when you tell you, but I'm like, you'll get there and you'll see it. And then to me, I shoot a stage and I go, oh, was that fast? And people are like, you're like, oh, good.
The elite shooters.
Yes.
That's exactly what's going on in their heads.
Yes,
right?
any professional sport, no matter what it is, when they get to there, it doesn't matter if it's tennis
Right,
or
right.
golf or anything. I think every elite player sees it in slow motion.
Right.
It's probably very interesting to, I'm sure Tiger Woods probably watches the ball flex
Right.
when he hits it, just because he's just so tuned.
Oh yeah,
to
absolutely.
what's happening.
But if you ever go to the Nationals or something and go watch the super squads, right?
Yeah.
They're all just standing there like zombies,
Yes.
and that's what's going on in their head. Everything is just slow.
Yeah, they slow it down, and they get a chance to really focus on what's happening at that moment. And when you first come out, you see people go faster. You're like, I have to go fast, and you realize well, it's not really all about that. Especially IDPA. As I always equate, I tell a lot of people, it's between USPSA and IDPA, it's chess versus checkers. It really is more if you're into strategy and thinking. There is you can actually benefit a lot, not by being a fast shooter,
Right.
but just by being someone who, if you don't make mistakes, or if you don't, so you don't have to be have 0.16 splits,
Right.
But if you can just shoot and move on, you tend to be very, very fast. And one of the shooters who's a mentor and a friend of mine is Jerry Micklick.
Oh,
and I remember talking with him one time, and I was explaining to him, I go, yeah, I watched you shoot, and it looks slow to me. Like he just kind of walks to the stage,
Yeah.
shoots, and then they read back the time, and you're like, how was that 6 seconds? Like I felt like that was a minute long, and you realize because he's just very fluid.
Right.
He's just very soft.
Well, there's no
moves.
wasted motion.
And that's what he said. He goes, I don't waste motion. I'm always moving if I
Yes.
can be. I don't really ever come to a stop, so I don't have to inertial get myself
Right.
going. And you realize like, oh, that's fascinating. When you then go back and watch it after he tells you that,
Yeah.
and you watch it and you go, oh, that's exactly what's happening.
So in these days when I have a mentoree, right, and that's the first thing that I do. I just like, so if you want to drop your times, you just got to stop wasting time, right?
Time.
So I try to get rid of the wasted time.
Right, yeah, exactly. And where that time comes in, obviously we have like what we always refer to is right splits, transitions, and movement, right?
Right.
So splits are the time between the gun firing, and then transitions are between the target, and then obviously movement is from whatever that position is. And one of the things, and I recently just did this for a class, which was super fascinating, was, a lot of people don't like to do tack loads, right? So they're like, there's always this argument of like, well, it's fast, it's not faster, it's slower, it's better to go. And one of the things that I found to be very interesting was, if you ask people like, well, have you actually timed yourself? Just tried it. People always go, well, no, I just know it's faster. And I go, well, try it. So one of the things that I'll do as an exercise is I'll put 2 barrels and 2 targets, and then set up a scenario where I go, you can shoot, 3 shots or 2 shots. You have 3 rounds of the gun. You shoot it, you run, you shoot one. You have to do a reload, a static reload. Then you shoot it. Okay, what's your time? And then you do one where you only have 2 rounds, right? You shoot 2. And then you can do a speed reload.
Right.
And then the third one is where you have 3 rounds, you shoot, but then you tack load on your way over. And it was super fascinating because everybody was 2 to 3 seconds faster tack loading.
Right.
And what I tell people is move those barrels in and find that distance where for you, it's not beneficial. So like if this is 10 feet, it's better for me to tack load.
Right. So tack loading it decreases the steps, right? So
correct. Well, you're doing two things at once.
So you no longer have to.
Right, but you're also doing two things at one time. You're moving and loading, right? So versus moving,
drop,
shooting,
stop.
then loading. And so you're
eliminating a step.
Yeah. And you're already dropping the gun, right? You're already getting the gun into what I call a safe moving condition, right? Fingers at a trigger,
right,
and guns towards you, right? And so you're already in that reloading position. Right. So you might as well as you're moving, and you don't have to keep actually running as fast as you think you do as well, because now you've actually saved a lot of time as you get into that position to make it up. So I always tell people, before you doubt anything, try it a few times.
Yes.
Now, I will say that I'm guilty of this, right? So I have a very famous saying, which is something that's called a crossover step.
Right.
Right. So I'm sure Paul can insert something that shows what a crossover step is, but I argued with the guy that coaches me all the time.
Yeah.
So when the guy was coaching me, he said, "You got to, in this condition, you got to do a step over." And I was like, "No." I tried it. I tried it twice. I'm like, "Nope, this is stupid."
Did you trip or?
Nope. I just found it to be stupid, and I was like, "It's not faster. It doesn't feel comfortable. I don't like it." However, what he always said was, "Just try it, and if it doesn't work for you, not everything's going to work for you."
Right. No. You got to try it.
And you got to try it. So I went home and I practiced. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try it a few more times. So I tried it a few more times, and then we shot a Tier 4 match, and there's just a great photograph of somebody took of me just doing this awesome step over, which I'll send a photo for you, doing this step over, and my wife, being very kind and considerate to her husband, blew it up, sent it to my coach saying, "Yes, apparently this is a very stupid thing to do."
Katie Rowe. So his wife's Katie Rowe, and that's just the way she is.
So my wife is also a competitive shooter, which
very good one at that.
Yes, and which is always funny because a lot of people are like, "Oh, I wish my wife would shoot," which is great because it is fun because you get to go do this kind of stuff, and it's great for IDPA.
Yeah,
it's not great if you do 3 guns. 223 is very expensive, and when 2 people are practicing, let me tell you, when you fill a half bucket of brass at 223,
man,
it's cheaper to go to dinner at a steakhouse.
Yes, right. Plus
with the most expensive wine.
Oh my God! So I did Paula, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
I went to Paula and Fuego, right?
Yeah.
So oh my God, that was so expensive.
Right? Oh yeah, and then it's. The one thing everyone will learn with anyone that's married or is dating, it will learn. Well, I want to have my own gun. So now you're buying 2 ARs. Now you're buying 2 shotguns. When you're a competitive shooter like we are, and you travel a lot, you tend to convince yourself. I don't know why, but you do convince yourself that I should have 2 of everything.
Yes.
So when you buy 2 SIGs. Your wife buys 2 Glock 34s if that's what she's into shooting. So if you open our safe, it's literally like 2 Glocks, 2 SIGs, and then it's the 2 26s, 2 shields, and you're just like, oh man.
So my wife, she, bless her heart, she doesn't shoot, right? But she knows that when I buy a gun, she goes, "There's no problem. You buy a gun, you just write me a check for the same amount."
How much did you spend?
Right, I was like,
and then she comes home and you're like, "Where did you get that fur jacket from?"
Right.
Well, it turns out this costs exactly as much as.
Yeah. I'm like,
how much did you spend on that 365?
Oh,
turns
man.
out that's what I spent on my. So
what a great technique that was.
Yes.
How did she learn that? So what capacity did you work in for the IDPA?
So let's see. So I started shooting IDPA. So with SEAL Challenge, there's a guy by the name of Mike Dalton and Mike Fitcher who started it.
Wow. Yeah.
So Mike Dalton is very good friends with Bill Wilson and stuff like that. So Bill had reached out to him and said, "Hey, we're starting IDPA.
Yeah.
Would you start a club?" So we helped them start club number 4, which was ISI.
Wow.
And at that time, I was really big at shooting USPSA and ICOR. So I really didn't have a lot of like IDPA experience, but I'm like, well, Mike's is super supportive to the shooting industry. So I said, well, Mike, we'll come out, we'll help you, we'll do whatever it takes. And so went out, started shooting a whole bunch of IDPA every month. He did it two matches a month at his club. And then later that evolved. He became a very unique style of shooting where they had SOs at every bay.
Yeah.
And you could show up, shoot anytime between 8 and 2. And they were the same SO. So it was almost like you're shooting a big match. And we'd have 130 shooters twice a month.
Right.
And I really liked it as a competitive shooter because for whatever it was, $15 or something, you could shoot twice. So I'd get there, shoot through, take a break, oil the gun, reload, shoot again, because it was just good practice because it was a stage and it was a match, and you always want to try to be as close as possible to your time should be close unless you had a major issue. And then we got kind of more heavily involved, became an SO. I'm trying to remember what year that was. I'm not sure what year that was.
It was that long ago?
Yeah, it was that long ago. Probably early 2000s, maybe.
Wow.
Originally, I think.
Okay.
I'd have to look and see. And then I don't know how many years back now, I became, I got a call from headquarters. They said, hey, we'd like you to be an AC for California and Nevada and Hawaii. There wasn't anything happening in Hawaii, but...
so you went straight from an SO to, you didn't do a CSO, you just went...
Right. Well, but I did it I was an SO for a long time.
For a long time, right.
Yeah, and helped out a lot of matches. So, and, my wife did a lot of stuff with Joyce Wilson.
Oh, yeah.
So she kind of knew us and knew that, you had the right kind of temperament and personality, and that's kind of one of the things they worry about.
So area quarter for...
California, Nevada, and Hawaii when I was doing it.
Okay, so that's 3 states.
Yeah, it was 3 states. Yeah. Now, in all
don't even
fairness,
know
nothing was happening in Hawaii, which bummed me out.
thank
I
God.
really wanted to start a club there. And I did try, which was fun, though, because Nevada had just stopped running a club, and then a couple of years went by, and then they wanted to start a club. So me and my wife drove out there. We did a class, an SO class, I think on Saturday.
Okay.
And then on Sunday, they had their first match. So we got a bunch of people SO certified, and then we ran their club match. I think, it was a Sunday. We ran their club match with them and kind of went through the whole thing, which was just super fun.
Right.
And now that club is kind of they had a little bit of problems, I think, because of COVID, and now they're kind of gearing back up. I think you were just there recently for they just had an outlaw bug match, right?
Vegas?
Yeah, Vegas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which I laughed and joked because when I read their thing, I went, oh, the actual carry guns. I go, their bug gun is my carry gun. It's a 43X with a dot. Right. I can't shoot that technically in IDPA.
Right. So Chad Cunningham, match director, just had this this brainchild and said, hey, this is the way that we should practice.
Yeah.
Right. And this was epitome of concealed carry type of stuff. Right. He goes, so whatever you carry, right,
bring that.
And you have to be dressed.
How you would really dress.
And I sat there and went, okay. So I shot with Scott Meyer, and he sat there and he just wore what he wears to work.
Yeah.
Right. And he had his holster inside the belt.
Yeah.
Right? And he goes, oh, so we all had to be extra careful because of our shirts, right? So now it's kind of going in when you holster or when you pull out, and you're always grabbing.
Yeah, but how much did you learn about your actual everyday carry?
Okay, so the first stage, I sat there and went, okay, so there's a lot of things that I would have to change, right, in order to get, but that would change the way that I would look outside. But windbreakers are better than sweaters, by far, right?
Yeah, right. Oh yeah.
Right. So my cart had all this clothing. Because I was testing stuff, and I'm like, wow, this is really difficult, right?
But it goes to show, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't take into a factor is clothing, right? So there is winter.
Yes, absolutely.
Even in California, we complain when it's, let's be honest, for anybody that's not living in California watching this podcast, 60 degrees is icy cold in California. So other places, Nevada in the morning when you get to the first day, it's 40 degrees. You're like, this is cold to us.
Yes, by
and then by noon,
11
it's
o'clock,
80.
right? Yeah, so I'm changing to shorts.
And you're just putting a light shirt on, because I normally have kind of a light shirt that I wear over when I have mine on, unless I'm, in the summertime, I tend to have a t-shirt that's just out, obviously, and it makes you think about printing and all these things that you don't normally think about, because guns, it's kind of funny, like we made guns small and then we started making them big again by putting optics on them and extender plates, because the grips got a little too small, and then you start going like, well, I don't want that to print, but you start learning how to do that and what clothes to wear for what gun, because we all wear different, we all have several guns on our CCWs that we carry in a full size. Now I have some of my friends that live in Texas, and I was laughing because I was giving them a hard time, because when I went down there, their regular ESP, they shoot ESP, their regular ESP holster, gun, and mag pouches is their everyday carry. They just have their regular contact speed holster on, their speed mags. They just put a shirt over it, and they're like, if it prints, who cares?
So when you first started IDPA, what gear did you actually start with?
So when I actually started, I actually had so at the time I was shooting, the pistol I was a Taurus 92, which is a copy of the Beretta.
Who was the sponsor for the Vegas?
Right.
thing?
Yeah. So, so I had that gun. So there was a company that made it was hard to find a holster for that gun at the time. Everybody was shooting 1911s,
right,
or revolvers,
USPSA
or
rigs
USPSA
and
speed
stuff like
rigs.
that.
So and I had a USPSA speed rig for it.
I think we all do.
Right. Yeah. Well, I have a bunch of, which I should have brought. I have a bunch of Ernie Hill speed leather stuff. Which, if you see those holsters, if you hold the gun upside down, it falls out. They were little cups that just held the gun very gently. And so there was a company that was just doing vacuum molding Kydex at the time.
Okay.
Back east. So I had to send them the gun. They actually vacuum formed this holster to it, so it was a complete, at the time, a custom holster. And then I just had some old leather mag pouches, Ernie Hill, that worked for that thing, and they were still considered to be legal. So I started with that equipment, and then later I went to using Blade Tech, and then I think I had Blade Techs for 2 years, but I literally kept breaking them because I would lay on the ground or I'd have issues with them. And then I got I bought a contact holster, and couldn't break it as many times as I landed on it. So then I was like, I got in this crazy idea of I'm going to replace all my stuff with contact. And it turns out they do cost more money, but there's a lot of weird things that as a competitive shooter, you start learning, they'll put Loctite on the screws. And I would get Blade Tech holsters and Safari Line holsters in the bag, and the screws would be in the bottom. Just traveling, they'd vibrate, the screws would come out. Right. And in the summertime, they get hot. And so I was like, God, the screws never fall out of these. And then I was at SHOT Show one year, and I just happened to talk to, my wife was on Shooting Gallery. They had put her on Shooting Gallery, and she shot with Randy Rogers. And they did a thing called Crash Test Dummy, where my wife had only shot one match, and then they sent her out to shoot nationals. Yeah. And so they teamed her up with Randy. She started working for Comtech, so she goes, "Oh, let's go by the booth and say hi to Randy." And so we went by and said hi. And then so I was talking to one of their product manager guys, and he was like, "Oh yeah, because we put." And I'm like, why doesn't everybody put Loctite on the screws?
The blue? Or?
The blue, yeah. So they put this blue Loctite on the screws. If you pull them out, you'll see it. And I was like, oh, I go, yeah, because in the summertime, there'd be times in the bottom of my bag, there'd be a screw, and I'd be like, well, what holster is this for? Because, it's a bad thing. And I've seen guys lose screws and be walking on a range, and the gun just falls in the holster to the ground.
Or flips upside down.
Or it flips upside down. So these things happen. Yeah. And it's scary to everybody. It's empty, but it doesn't matter. So so I kind of became a very hard loyal with them, and spent a fortune. Cool. It turns out when you have a lot of different pistols, it's kind of expensive, especially once again, your wife does it. So you're not buying one.
That's right. You're buying two.
You're buying two of everything. And she, but the other trick that I learned, which is, here's a fun tip that I'll tell people why I also like Contact a lot, is they make a lot of different color variations.
Oh, okay.
So
you gotta add color.
All red holster, red mag pouches is for my SIG X, is for my SIG. All the blue stuff I have is for my MMPs.
Oh my
All
goodness.
the tan stuff I have is for my 1911.
You might as well look the part.
I switched the color, so I know when I grab the holster, it's for the right gun, because I know that this goes with the SIG. And I know I don't grab a red holster and blue mag pouches, because they have to be the same color. So it was kind of when you shoot a lot, you learn that you have to have those things, because as you know, and probably a lot of the new shooters will learn, you will show up to the range without your gun. You will show up without your holster. You will show up without ammo at times.
Right.
So these things happen. We all do it, especially I think the more you do it, you tend to become very, just kind of like, it's almost like that complacent thing where you're like,
right.
oh, I just know how all my stuff goes.
Right.
Now, I used to fly airplanes 30 years ago. So on our safe, there's a checklist.
Yeah.
And it's
Yep.
like
Right,
shoes,
right.
shirt, hat,
Right.
vest, mag pouches.
Yep.
So, and we read it out loud.
Yeah.
And it just reminds you like, okay, I have everything. And I actually recommend it to everybody. Like just put that on your safe or
Right.
on your shooting thing, just so you remind yourself, like, cause sunblock,
Yeah.
right? You forget,
Oh,
and boy,
yeah,
and out here, I don't
absolutely.
know. Yeah. You want to have sunblock.
Yeah.
Especially if you're an
Yeah.
SO1, because you're never standing in the shade.
Or sombreros.
Oh,
right?
yes, right. You'll always know who SOs are because you don't have these crazy hats or something. That's why, because you've SO'd so many times.
Absolutely.
You know, or their collars are flipped
Yep,
up, or
yep.
they have towels around their neck because we get to spend all the time in the sun, right?
Right.
Everyone will go back in the shade.
Yeah.
And or under umbrellas, but you can't. You're always running
Yeah.
this, so you learn like, and you just want to put it on your face because
Yeah.
you come home looking like a raccoon sometimes.
So what do you think about where the equipment's going with IDPA right now?
Well, I think one of the things, what I do like is I do like that they, you know, we now obviously have carry optics.
Yes. Yeah.
I actually think that the thing that's obviously the new rule, which I think you covered, which is compensators and ports,
yes.
which have been on guns for a long time. And they've also been on carry guns for a long time. So I like that they have gone to that because those are guns you buy. They're very common. They're easy to find. One of the things I really enjoy about IDPA is really the barrier to entry, right? The cost to start shooting. Like,
Yes.
What a lot of people don't realize is you can see a lot of like neat STIs and staccatos that are $4,000. You see a lot of guys shooting Atlases that are $7,000. And then you go to nationals and guys like Bob Vogel are destroying everybody with a stock Glock 34.
I don't even want to talk about that.
Yeah, so what you learn is really any gun you can buy, if you just practice with it,
Yeah.
you're going to be very competitive. Like you don't they're not. It's nice. Don't get me wrong. Those things are nice, but you're not going to be competitive with a Glock 34, a Glock 17.
That is absolutely true.
It's just going to
absolutely
be
true.
practice. And I tell some people when you first start, you're almost better off buying kind of whatever gear.
Yeah,
Like you're
yeah.
kind of like better off like until you find what you like. Like
Yeah.
it's hard to go wrong now, to be honest with you. There's so many really good holster manufacturers.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
There's so many like ammo. You can buy bulk ammo at places. IDPA is a maximum for a club match. You're not going to shoot more than 150 rounds.
Thank God for that.
Yeah. So it's which is nice, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the thing where you spend more money than the match entry now.
Oh, when there was like a primer shortage,
Yes.
right? I was like, oh, thank God we're only shooting like 100 rounds.
Well,
today.
I think all the clubs here in California started reducing the round count specifically to try to be at 100 rounds, because they didn't want people to be spending.
Well, I
think
used
that
to
was like $60.
So before that, right, pre primer rationing times, I used to practice at least 3 times a week,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
matches, and I would think that was the minimum for me at least.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And now it's all dry firing.
Right, you switched to dry firing because it became too expensive to actually go do live fire,
Yeah.
and I think this is my own belief on that is dry fire practice and stuff like that is actually very good, because I think sometimes you can end up wasting ammo in the range regardless if it's even free. You don't really want to waste ammo or your time. Most people have to drive to a range, so it's going to be a minimum of half hour to an hour to a range depending upon club costs, whatever your club costs are. So I always say stuff like basic reloads, basic drawing, basic movement. practice that a lot just to get that, that repetition in your system. And then when you go to the range, I always tell people, before you go to the range, have a good plan on what you want to practice when you get there. So you don't get there, show up, and be like, what should I drag around? You waste time. It's like, get there, be efficient, because there's times, it's an hour and 20 minutes to our range. And there's times I've gone and spent 30 minutes and been like, okay, I'm good, and I leave. And there's other times I've gone and I've shot 1,000 rounds. I've gone and shot 100. And if you feel yourself tired, or if you feel yourself doing something not good, don't waste ammo or your time, because you're just going to teach bad muscle memory, right?
That's a good point.
And dry firing is the same thing. A lot of people, I'll ask people like, how long do you dry fire practice? And they'll be like, an hour. And I'm like, okay, you can't. You can't grip the gun as hard as you would grip it for an hour.
No.
And you have to remember, I think my favorite thing I always tell people about the shooting sports is the better you get at shooting, the less time you spend shooting.
Yeah. So how often would you... competition, how often would you recommend going to some type of match, especially like a regional or...
So obviously I always, I love to shoot, and I love the thing with people.
Now, to all of them.
Yeah, right. I think what's funny about, I have friends that live all over the country, and one of the things that I actually... California has a lot of crazy gun restrictions. However,
to say the least,
However, you can shoot a USPSA or IDPA match with an hour drive of LA every weekend.
Yeah.
And sometimes twice.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, but I find it to be very fascinating. I talk to friends of mine that live in New Mexico, and my friend used to joke and say, he goes, I would drive to the range and be like, I left my gun at home. I'll just stop off the store, buy one, and keep going. Because they can just pick one up and go. They can do the dros, it's done, they go. And I go, oh man, it takes us 10 days. But you go and they go, we have one match a month. And it's in 2 hours away, and you're like, wow, but in LA, I don't know if it's just the density of people, now the other place, which all of the famous shooters come from for some reason, places like Arizona, especially Phoenix and Scottsdale, they have like
Tucson.
Yeah, or Tucson. They have like something like 5 matches a month or 5 matches a week.
So my a dear friend of mine, he lives out there in Mesa, right?
Yeah.
So he was sitting there. He goes, if you wanted to, you can shoot every day if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Right. And I went, how's that even possible?
Yeah.
Right. So they have night matches and everything, right? So,
yeah, they do a lot of. I was there visiting a friend of mine, and we went and shot. They had Wednesday night steel. So I'm like, all right. So we went, and I'm like, okay. When I shot Wednesday Night Steel, there's 140 people. This is like, you talk to people and they're like, I throw all the stuff in my trunk of my car, and we just pick up some tacos on the way over, and
that's tier 2 right there.
And you're like, it's a tier 2 match. You're like, immediately. So you're like, and then of course you're like, that explains like why Rob Latham, Nils Johnson, all these people, because they can shoot matches consistently. And I try and tell people, when you first start, you want to go try and shoot a match a month, right? So you're familiar. Try to practice in that time. Now, I'm probably a little bit like you. When I was competing, I would shoot on average in a month, I'd probably shoot 6 matches in the month. And then on the alternate days, I would practice. So there'd be some weekends where we'd have a match Saturday, Sunday. And then if we didn't have that, I would practice on the alternate day. So I was going to the range every weekend, except for a major match. And then major matches, I would take off 4 days before the major match, and I'd go to the range every single day and shoot. I don't know, like I was heavy into I-Corps for a long time, so I would shoot like 15,000 rounds of revolver the weekend before the revolver match, just to get myself like, because I would shoot autos, and it's a little bit of a gear shifter to go from my 1.5 pound triggers to 6 pound triggers with a much longer stroke. So it would take a little bit of practice to do that. But you get yourself up to speed, and if you can do it. Now I'm not only my job allows it, and so it was great. So it was one of those things where it was very flexible to do those things. Not everyone can do it, I was a single guy making a lot of money, so I had a giant wad of money I could spend, and I had to report to myself. So it was like
things are different,
right?
Things have changed.
Yeah, when you get a mortgage, wife and stuff, You know, then you start once you get out of your 20s, you're like,
Yeah.
I do want to retire some point in my life, so I should squirrel some money into a 401k. Because when you're young, you're like 401k medical. What do I need that for?
So you got something in the brown bag.
Yeah.
What you got there?
So I brought I know we talked about maybe cleaning guns and stuff like that, and easy guns to clean. So
At least
my favorite easy gun to clean is my SIG X5, which I've been shooting the last couple of years. I'm trying to remember when these came out.
Yeah.
I actually bought, if you actually look at this one, this is actually one of the first generations, because you can tell by the barrel. All the newer ones now have all the barrels are blue.
This one's ported.
This one's not ported. This one's not.
Are those holes?
No, no, just dirt.
Oh, just dirt. It's so dirty that
It's so dirty.
I
Yeah.
thought it was ports.
You should always clean your gun, people.
How about if we break it apart and show the subscribers?
Yeah, we'll go. Yeah, let's do that.
All right, stay tuned for that.
All right.
All right, so one of the things I really like about the SIG X5 is the ease of maintenance. And for a lot of people that aren't familiar, this is one of the very first guns that they made, which is modular. And I'll show you what that means basically, which is you always want to make sure the gun is clear, empty, never assume. I have seen people rack guns and there's still rounds in there, so be sure of that. But there's just a simple takedown lever. You kind of crank this over, so it slide down. The pistol comes apart. But like most guns, you have your rod and spring, you have your barrel. Now what I'll do is I'll just take these pieces, and including, you'll see here this trigger module, which if you just pull this piece out here, this trigger module just comes out as one little piece here. So you can sit there and this will come out, and this is the actual serialized part on the SIG gun. So you can actually put this in a smaller frame, a larger frame. And so what I do to clean the gun is I'll take all these parts and I'll just put them in a sonic cleaner, pull them out, wipe them down, then re-oil them, and then you just simply put the gun back together. And so one of the things I do tell people though with the SIG is this internal part here, unless you are either a highly trained gunsmith or a well-trained Swiss watchmaker, do not take it apart. There are very small springs in there. It's pretty amazing on how this is put together, but it is a great well-built gun, and it's very easy to maintain and clean. Like I said, if you break this grip piece, you can buy them online. So that's one of the things that I really like, especially living in California, is once you get a hold of that part, you can easily upgrade or switch to a smaller piece, which is super great. So let me see if I can put this back together. So that just goes like that. And one of the things, if you're not familiar with the SIG, one of the things that will get a lot of people is after you obviously reassemble your pistol. Oops, hold on a second. As I say that, I can't put it back together. Oops, that's why. Is that in there all the way? No, that was not in there all the way. Okay, so after you assemble the pistol and you close it, you will see that the trigger no longer works. This is one of the things that I've gotten calls from friends that have bought SIGs, clean and put them back together, and they don't realize that. What you have to do is you have to put the slide lock or the slide stop up on the gun, and when you do that, you'll hear it click, and after it clicks, you'll hear now the trigger now works.
Wow, that was man. How do I get one of those?
Right? You're right. You write a check, a large one.
So when's the last time you cleaned that?
Well, I don't know. Just like 30 seconds ago, I kind of did a little bit of wipe down.
Oh, thank God for that. Do you always keep it well lubed and so?
Yeah, I think you can overdo it. I think one of the things that people do is sometimes put too much oil. Like I don't really tend to put, I don't tend to put a lot of oil on there. I don't tend to use a grease because I find in cold weather you can have issues. Just kind of a light oil is all I particularly do. And one of the things I didn't talk about that I really do is one of the things I always tell people is cleaning the gun's half of it.
Yeah.
The other half is actually inspecting the gun because you can actually.
Well said.
I have sheared lugs off of barrels
Really?
Oh yeah. So these things can happen. Extractors, ejectors, chip and break. The reason why extractor and ejector on guns are $15 is because it's an expendable part. They break. So especially the more you shoot, the more you really should, as you're cleaning a gun, actually visually inspect it to make sure that something didn't break or has a crack, or because even your extractor will, or your ejector will get sheared.
Yes.
And it will still work. But then all of a sudden you'll start having issues.
Well, thank you for adding that. Yeah, absolutely. So, would you any great words of wisdoms for the new shooters? Or
I think the words of wisdom would be come out. Try it. Get in contact with any club near you. I think Paul actually has an episode talking about practice score and how it works, and you can use that to research in your area. You will be, I think, very shocked to find how open everybody is at a club. They'll post their emails. They are looking forward to anybody coming out. They want to get people involved.
Sure.
We love having, and you don't have to be a crazy competitor.
No.
I think you can just come out once a month, once every other month. You'll learn that it's just fun. You'll end up meeting people. I've met people from every walk of life, from lawyers to doctors to postmen to construction to people in the film industry. And it's one of the things that's fascinating. Because I shoot like you, larger matches, tier matches and stuff like that, we get to meet people from around the world. I have some friends that live in Australia. I have friends in Germany.
Kenya, Taipei.
And so there's a lot of those things. One of the CSOs that used to do a lot of the SO training and stuff would always go to like Thailand to teach those guys.
Wow, that's amazing.
So it was always great to see what you can do and meet the people you can meet. And it's fun because when you go there, you have kind of somebody and you can meet them. They'll show you the local thing.
Right.
But everyone's a great. It's not quite as like intense. It's like everybody's out, and you're only competing against yourself. I think it's the trick that people don't think. They think they're competing against you or me or something.
Right.
You're not. You will learn you're competing against yourself, and you want to see yourself improve, which is nice. You get to see that curve, and you'll feel it happen.
Absolutely.
And
remember, it all starts off as responsible practice. So
yes, for sure, it's all a responsible practice, and I think
it turns into competition.
Then you wake up one day and. I laugh and joke and say that when I was young, my mom was very supportive of like getting involved with rifle shooting and guns, which I thought we didn't really do a lot of that at my house, but my mom was very into that. And what I realized later in life, my mom really did that because she was like, as a young man, if you don't have something to focus on, you'll find something else, drugs or drinking or whatever. Now, in hindsight, drugs and drinking would have been far cheaper in my life, but she did send me down this financial road that...
you always have time for that, so you can do that later if you'd like.
But I can't encourage people enough to find a club near you, find people in your club. Everybody at the club that you run into was a new shooter.
Yeah.
At one point. Nobody showed up as a pro.
That's right.
Everybody started as a new shooter, and everybody knows what it's like, and you will be surprised at how friendly everybody is.
Except like JJ or Nils, right? They were just born superstars.
Yeah, those guys were born superstars. But like I said, if you run into those guys, they are super nice. The Robbie Lathams and the Todd Jarrett's and the Jerry Micklicks. The way you see them on camera is the way they are in person. So when you meet them, they are like that in person.
Absolutely.
We shot, I think one of the last revolver matches we shot was hosted on Jerry's range, his personal range. And Jerry's out there serving lunch for everybody. Like that's really just how Jerry
should be, right?
And that's just his personality, and he's just very humble guy. So
that is awesome.
I encourage people, come out, try it. Whatever gun you have, just bring it. And if you don't have a gun or a holster, but you want to try it, I guarantee you, if you talk to the match director, somebody will arrange to have guns and gear for you. I know at our club, we will arrange to have any of that stuff for you.
Well, there's words to live by. Stay tuned for our next video. Empty table starts. How to stow and go. That will be your next video. Thank you so much for tuning in to Can We Chat. Please consider being a part of our shooting community, building relationships around gun practice and IDPA competition. My name is Paul G, and this is
Derek Savada.
Be safe, and we shall see you on the range.
like, share, subscribe.